Welcome back to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans. From the West Coast, I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Thursday, November 30th, 2023, and I'm very happy to be joined once again by fellow South Stands contributor Paige Van Horn from Denver. PVH, how's it going, my friend?
So it's a retread. Said it before. I take no ownership credit for it. It's a Sloaner classic, but smiling through the pain, brother. Smiling through the
pain. We are also joined by fellow contributor Chad Plummer from Cleveland. CP, what's the word from the 216?
What up? It's all good, man. You know, it is what it is. Life moves forward.
Yep, that's true. That's true. It is what it is. Smiling through the pain. I feel like we said that exact same, I uttered those exact same words at this time a year ago. We are here today to have another look back at Ohio State's disappointing 30-24 loss to Michigan. Outside of our text thread, fellas, the three of us haven't had a chance to talk about Ohio State's performance as a group, in that game. So I'm looking forward to that. Our listeners already know mostly where I stand on it from my post-game pod on Sunday, but they haven't yet heard your takes on it, guys. So let's jump right into it. PVH, I'm going to start with you. Why did the Buckeyes lose to Michigan on Saturday?
You know, man, I think I'm sure like both of you have given this way more thought than I wanted to. I feel like as we get older, it does get easier, but it kind of really doesn't. I mean, I guess you recover faster. After 2 days of just shutting out the world, I did start to poke my head out of the rabbit hole and start to read things. And, I kind of land that I feel like Michigan going into this game was absolutely 100% confident that they were going to win it. And Ohio State went in it as a fan, as the coaching and the players, cautiously optimistic that they could win this game. And it is such a freaking mental game, I think, for both teams. And that's enough, right? To flip the script. And I think it manifests itself in players and in coaching, right? And I'm sure we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
And there was one, it was Birmingham, and he was talking about McCord, and he was just saying, no mistakes. And it's like, dude, that's, and not that, a 19-year-old kid has to be, the greatest motivational speaker in the world. But if that's your mindset going into it, then that's kind of probably a red flag. And then I think Day coached conservatively, and it's clearly in his head as well. And it just comes down to the fact that when you lose this game 2 years in a row, the pressure, not to mention the stakes.
Oh yeah.
But the pressure builds and builds and builds. And Michigan went in there completely unafraid, and we went in there cautiously optimistic. And then the last one I'll say on this, it's kind of a three-part answer, I guess, if you will. I'm sort of coming around to the last 30 years of my father, Joe Van Horn, telling me that if you're not born in Ohio, then you can't win this game. And I know that makes no logical sense, but I, went back and looked, and Cooper started in 98, and guys that weren't born in Ohio are basically 3-16 or something along those lines.
Yeah. Cooper started in 88. You meant, I think that's
or
what
88,
you just said.
right.
Yeah. Right.
So they're 3-16, right? I mean, he won 2, Days won 1.
Yeah.
He was Trussell and
2-10-1. Cooper was. And now Day is 1-3. So yeah, maybe you've already done the math on that.
Whatever. Yeah. The point being,
3-13-1.
Pretty fucking abysmal record.
It's an interesting point. That's an interesting point. CP, how about you? Why did Ohio State lose this game to Michigan on Saturday?
I'd like to say first off, it started out like the tone of the game. Obviously at the very beginning of that interception. You know what I mean? Like
huge.
That right there. It kind of like it takes the one down the field to be like, all right, let's go. Like it's early, this and that, but that like it gets that vibe in that stadium, a little bit electric early. I don't know about Maserati. Like, so if you go back and look at the 2 interceptions that he threw, Maserati, like Harrison those could have been avoided with interceptions.
Well, certainly in that first one, maybe he could have made a little bit more of an attempt to break it up, I think is what you're saying, right? Exactly. So the ball's not intercepted. Okay. Yeah, right. That's a fair point. On that first one, for sure, it seemed like maybe he let up or gave up on the play and maybe could have fought a little harder to break it up.
Right. I agree with Paige. Day, I mean, what the fuck, man? Like that field goal at the first half.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, let's go, dude. That's bullshit. And then you're like, we had there was a chance we could have ran 2 plays there. I mean, like he let the clock run down from what was
about 30 seconds, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and then our kicker, he, you don't kick that ball, dude, because that one went right through the upright. So you're like, oh man, he's going to miss this next one, dude.
Well, hey, can I cut you off, Chad? Because
of course.
The first possession and Ibuka drops that ball.
Yeah.
Dude, Ibuka has been making that catch. He's been making that catch since he was 5 years old.
You're right? 100% right. And not many people have said anything about that.
Yeah. Dreadful start.
Yeah. And that just, I mean, literally those types of mistakes, they just build on, especially if we're going with the narrative that, there was some cautious optimism, not just outright confidence. And then I think the next possession, McCord missed somebody. It's like I haven't had the guts to go back and watch the game, but the second possession, McCord missed somebody. I think
it was Marvin Harrison Jr. out. Yeah, yep, he had him wide open.
I mean, wide
for a first down.
And then the third possession is the interception. So I agree with you, Chad, 100%. I'm just saying it actually started on the first 2 possessions. Then you get to the third, and then you're like, oh fuck, and then from that point, psychologically, we're playing from a deficit.
In a 1-score game on the road against a matchup opponent where the outcome is almost always going to be decided in the margins, Ohio State was -2 in the turnover department. And one of those turnovers set Michigan up 1st and goal at the Ohio State 7-yard line, and they converted it into a touchdown. If you're one of those fans that likes to boil it down to one thing, well, then I think you can point to turnovers and leave it at that. And of course, the second turnover ended the game. But I also thought Ryan Day's ultra conservatism on the 2 4th down situations in the first half were costly. Let's have a closer look at that second decision on the 4th and short, the most egregious of the 2. That was 4th and 2 from the Michigan 34-yard line in the final, 30 seconds or so of the second quarter. The offense was in a good lather at that stage. The Buckeyes had just scored on their 2 previous drives and were in the middle of a 64-yard drive that started at their own 2-yard line.
That's insane.
Why are you taking your offense off the field and putting the game into the hands of your worst unit, the special teams, at that stage? Jaden Fielding has never hit a field goal over 50 yards in his entire career. I mean, do we not learn anything from the Peach Bowl? What is our success rate with place kickers who've never hit 50-yard field goals in high leverage moments?
Mike Nugent's not running off the sideline.
He's not walking through that door. And look, that was a lost opportunity to go into the locker room with a lead, having scored on 3 straight drives. And we're talking about a psychological edge, right? How much of a statement would it have made to grab the lead on a 98-yard drive going into the half?
Right.
Now, PVH, when you and I spoke at halftime, I think you had a much better handle on the moment than I did. It wasn't until after the game that it really dawned on me how much of a lost opportunity that was for Day to not only get the lead, but also give his team that psychological edge, that emotional lift, which I think they really needed. PVH, let me kick this back to you. Any other observations around why Ohio State lost this game?
That was gigantic. The fact that the drive started at the 2-yard line, right? And, I forget the first few plays, but then they just moved the ball down the field at will.
On 3 straight drives, right? Because there was the touchdown drive previous to that, field goal drive previous to that. And on that gorgeous catch that Julian Fleming made on 3rd down, that extended the drive. You guys remember that? The diving catch that he
yeah.
caught when
Beautiful.
that bailed us out.
He was-
I mean, what a play.
Huge.
Yeah.
He was huge. That is the most unconscionable thing that Tate did. I really don't have a whole lot of problems with anything else, the game that he called other than that. But it's just a force multiplier, right? Because if even if you ran, I mean, okay, say you don't get it, right? Okay, fine. Then the half is over. That's some momentum for Michigan. But even if you get another 15 yards, you get 3 points, it's huge momentum for us. My God, if you put 7 on the board, that changes the whole dynamic, which kind of flips the script to what the game was last year, right? Where, we had so many missed opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were 8 seconds left. I get it, but not that much time. Come on.
Right. No, totally. And then the other thing is to your point, like the piece, like you're not bringing in Mike Nugent to make that field goal, Brian.
Right.
Like what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
And it's just, you've never put him in that position all year long. It just made no sense. And again, that's, I think, where, he's overthinking the situation because of the pressure, because he's lost the last 2 games.
I do really want to underscore just how unspecial the Ohio State special teams were on Saturday and how they've been all season and last year as well.
Right.
Parker Fleming's unit, he didn't lose the game for the Buckeyes. It just made it harder for everyone else to do their jobs in a game where the margin for error was razor fucking thin. I mean, Jesse Miracle averaged 36 yards on 3 punts. Never once pinned Michigan inside their own 20. Meanwhile, Michigan's punter, Tommy Doman, averaged 52 yards on his 3 punts, and that included a 71-yarder that pinned Ohio State inside their own 2-yard line. Of course, we've already talked about Fielding missing his 52-yarder. Meanwhile, Michigan's place kicker, James Turner, drilled his 50-yarder. And then on the kick return, before Ohio State's final possession of the game, Xavier Johnson inexplicably attempted to return the ball instead of calling a fair catch. He was dumped at the 19-yard line. That mistake took 5 precious seconds off the game clock, and it cost Ohio State 6 yards of field position. But in spite of the turnovers, Ryan Day's ultra-conservatism, the lousy special teams, the Buckeyes had the ball at the Michigan, 35-yard line, down only 6, with enough time for probably at least 3 shots at the end zone to win the game. PVH, you and I were there at Notre Dame in the exact same situations. The Buckeyes were in the Notre Dame red zone like that. So credit Michigan for getting pressure on McCord to force a bad throw, to force that interception. But like you, PVH, otherwise, I thought Ohio State played pretty well in defeat. I thought the Ohio State defense made Michigan earn every single goddamn yard, every single point. Nothing came easy. I mean, even when they had the ball at the 7-yard line to start the game, on that, it took them 4 downs to punch it in. And Blake Corum barely got the ball over the goal line. And on their second touchdown, that was the review where they thought maybe Denzel Burke intercepted the ball. I mean, the defense held J.J. McCarthy 64 yards below his season average. Blake Corum only averaged 4 yards a carry in this game, which is almost a full yard below his season average. Michigan finished the day with 338 yards of total offense, which is 61 yards below their season average. The Ohio State offense, they converted in the red zone in this game. They converted all 3 of their red zone trips to touchdowns against a Michigan defense that came into this game rated number 1 in the country at preventing red zone touchdowns. So, and then that third quarter touchdown drive to tie the game at 17, that was awesome. They finished that drive with 8 straight runs right into the heart of the Michigan defensive front. Bill Landis said that was their best drive of the season. I totally agree. Look, the Buckeyes just came up a few plays short against probably the best Michigan team. Well, definitively the best Michigan team of the Harbaugh era. Might even be better than that 1997 team that won a share of the national title. I texted you guys this on Sunday. I think of the 5 teams Day has coached at Ohio State, this is probably his 4th best. And yet they went toe-to-toe with the best Michigan team of the last probably 30 years in the Big House. And they just came up a little short. I think is kind of my final, just the way I'm looking at this. I don't know, CP, where does that land with you?
Yeah, I agree, man. You know what? Like, even you mentioned to me the other day, like, I mean, program criticism, yeah, like, because I get a little bit sensitive to that. I can be a little sensitive, if you will.
We all can, but we all do. I mean, it's like somebody criticizing my kid sometimes, right? Like I'm the only one that's allowed to criticize him. Like you can't criticize. I'm the only one that can do it.
Yeah. and I'm all good. Like, it's just, it is. Like, you made a good point. But like my thing is, it just makes me like, it really fucking irks me because I know, I feel like what's going to happen. Like, I mean, you can say what you will about Buckeyes being softer than Michigan because it's the same fucking, as last year. People out there are like, oh, just not as tough as us, whatever.
No way. This was not a toughness contest. Ohio State is every bit as tough as Michigan. I'm not buying that.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying. But like, I feel like what's going to happen is Michigan's going to get fucking like smacked down, like just like they did against TCU, dude. I mean,
oh no.
Then again, like, I think we play better against the higher level. Like, I don't think Michigan, like, yeah, they may be one of the best like teams in a long time in Harbaugh for sure. But I mean, I think we're still a better team. I mean, but we lost the game. It's frustrating. Yeah, we made some bad decisions, some bad calls, and I'm not quite sure. But I say that, and I'm not going to use the word but that first touchdown, that kid fumbled the ball in the end zone. That was not 7.
Oh, you mean you're talking about the second touchdown, the one that Burke snatched away
in the end zone.
Yeah,
dude, they're never gonna overturn that, right? Like,
yeah.
But dude, everybody in the fucking the guys in the booth, the clown, that they have do those guys I can't stand. Hey, let's go to the booth. What is your thinking? Well, looks to me like he did not. He had a catch, but then he dropped the ball. Like those guys. But I didn't mean to go back to that, but I forgot to mention that earlier because that really.
Well, I mean, the defense contested everything, man, and Michigan had to earn every single yard and every single point.
I agree.
What was frustrating about that play, CP, was that Malik Hartford, the true freshman, it was his only down he played in the whole game. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was circulating on Twitter, but there was some all-22 footage of that play. Hartford had his eyes on J.J. McCarthy, and then inexplicably, as McCarthy was cocking his arm to throw the ball, turned his head. And McCarthy threw it right past his ear hole. If Hartford just, is still looking at the quarterback at that point, it's a deflection, it's an interception, it's an incomplete pass. But Michigan took advantage of a true freshman in a moment where if Lathan Ransom had been healthy and available, Hartford would not have been on the field on that play. I don't know that Ransom would have actually had coverage on the play, but Ohio State would have had one of their other top safeties in coverage there. And Michigan was able to take advantage of another key injury to the Buckeyes. And then later in the game, on Blake Corum's go-ahead touchdown in the third quarter, it was Sonny Styles who just he took 2 steps the wrong direction, and Corum was able to blow past him. That would have been Lathan Ransom in that role, in that position right there. He probably makes that tackle. And PVH, you had mentioned in our pregame pod what a big loss Ransom was. And I had said, well, I think we're going to be fine. And I kind of minimized it, I guess. But, you could look at 2 scoring plays for Michigan where Lathan Ransom, had he been in the game, might have made a difference there. So that's frustrating for me. Sorry, CP, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
We played a hell of a game, man. We came up short.
Yeah.
I wish the offensive line, maybe at the end could have dug a little deeper and given McCord another second or two because we would have had 7. But just didn't, we came up a little short, and it is what it is.
PVH, I want to kick this back to you. Anything else you want to say about why you thought Ohio State lost this game?
No, I just want to give you a shout out. Literally, I laughed out loud with your Knowles and obviously he's not a historian, right? If you don't account for the fucking tight ends and the halfback pass against Michigan, I don't know how many times I have to see it, right? But it gets very freaking painful that they keep executing that play.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think it goes back to, they just played with, unabandoned confidence and we didn't. And you go down the line, skill players and stuff like that, clearly we had the advantage, but the last few years it hasn't mattered, right? And I think it does come down to a few plays, but it's just painful to see the same script over, and not just the last few years. And now we're going back into the Cooper days, right? Where it's just, it happened over and over and over. That, and I almost think the day almost, like makes it a little bit too complicated, right? Like you cannot tell me that there's not 5-yard crossing patterns open all day long with the plethora of weapons that we have, right? As opposed to like trying to rip 25-yard out and ups to Marvin. Occasionally, do that. Michigan doesn't do that, right?
Right.
They just take what, 3 yards here, 3 yards there, and then 3 yards. I mean, and how many times did they find themselves in 4th down in very, very
three times? They converted all 3 times.
Manageable. Like you're gonna make that, and we don't. And I almost feel like we just make it, because we have all these weapons, like a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And I think you're putting a little bit too much pressure on, your quarterback than to execute.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so
his offense is predicated on a downfield, a vertical passing game. And there's no question about it. I mean, the types of passes McCord was attempting were the degree of difficulty and the risk of turnover was way, way higher than JJ McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy threw one pass over the middle that I remember, and that was over, deep and over the middle, and that was the throw for the touchdown. That could have easily been called an interception. Otherwise, he throws very safe throws to the sidelines, short throws to the tight end on little slip screens and that sort of thing. I'm a little torn on that though, because the threat of a legitimate vertical passing game with the skill guys they have, that's the type of offense that wins against the SEC in the playoffs. And he just has to figure out a way to make it work against Michigan. And I think he almost did this year. I don't think I would put this result in the same category as the last two. This was a close game that could have gone either way. Michigan was favored. Michigan had 43 seniors on this team. They're the more experienced team. They're playing at home. And, Ohio State was right there with them, with a team I thought is, Ryan Day's 4th best team since he's been at Ohio State. So anyway.
No, and that's all true. And clearly one of Harbaugh's best teams, if not his best team, clearly of the last 3, and one of Day's worst. But that's whatever. That's sugarcoating the fact that we lost the game.
Yeah.
And, I'm on record of thinking we would have had 2 losses going into this game. And so, like how disappointed could I, honestly be, like, cause I was wrong, but, I don't know. There's just something weird that doesn't sit right with me about the whole thing. And, I think it'd be a good segue. We've beat that horse to death.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our friend Kyle and what's going to happen here the next few weeks.
All right.
In the next 50 weeks.
Okay. Well, all right. So let's kick this over to Chad. Chad, here's the question for you. How would you evaluate Kyle McCord's play against Michigan? And is he the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes in 2024?
I mean, he's had a couple interceptions. Yeah. The first one, I blame it, it was
a bad throw. The first one was a bad throw, and that's all on Kyle McCord. It was a terrible throw. The second one, he got hit as he threw it. I don't think you can put that one on McCord.
No,
but how would you evaluate his overall play? We know the turnovers were bad, but in between the turnovers,
I think he played well. I mean, he made a couple of bad decisions. Yes, what if I liked him? Like, use his legs a little bit more, maybe stepped up into the pocket a couple more times. Yeah. But the kid can throw dimes, man. I like I said, there's a couple times I wish you would just ran the ball.
Yeah. That bum ankle though, he wasn't going anywhere.
Let's put it this way, I'm not calling for him to fucking get be on suicide watch or anything like that. But
is he the starting quarterback in 2024 for the Buckeyes, do you think?
I mean, the kid's only going to get better. Yeah. So I'd say yes, unless somebody unless I can get a Justin Fields or somebody like that out of the portal, which that's and that doesn't even mean anything. Fields just happened to work out. What I mean? McCord's been with that program for a while. I think he's the kid. This was his first year on the big you give that kid a second year, man. I think he's going to work his ass off this off season and spring, and then Yeah.
Okay.
He is my starting quarterback next year.
All right, PVH, same two questions to you. How would you evaluate Kyle McCord's play against Michigan, and is he the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes in 2024?
So it's not only him, but he basically cost them the game, right? I mean, those two turnovers were backbreaking, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I actually I disagree with you, Chad. I don't know that he's only going to get better, because I don't really see that he got any better throughout the course of this year. He can definitely throw dimes, but guess what? Anybody that's a starting quarterback at Michigan, Ohio State, whatever, they can all throw dimes. What?
JJ McCarthy can't.
Dude, what do you mean he can't? Dude, he just kicked our ass 3 years in a row. And the dime that he threw, just, in between those two guys for the touchdown was a fucking dime. So to sit here and say that, and we all said, hey, make JJ McCarthy beat us. Guess what? He fucking did. Ohio State fans have to sit on that and eat it. We can't sugarcoat that. With McCord, and again, I'm no football expert. I have no idea, but it does seem to me that he locks in on his first guy. And if that isn't open, then he panics. And a lot of times he just rips the ball. He doesn't have patience. He's not, the game didn't appear to me that it slowed down for him through the course of the season. Can he make spectacular throws? Absolutely. Is he, got a great arm? Absolutely. But I feel like he kind of panics a little bit. And I felt like that the entire season.
The game slowed down for him, dude. 2 weeks ago, if we go back and listen, you're like, oh, wow, I think the game's finally slowing down.
Well, guess what? Against real competition, it didn't. That first interception was pathetic. That he wasn't even open. And that was his first read, and he just threw it. I don't know if he can't read coverages. I don't know if he's afraid of getting hit. I don't know if whatever the case may be. I have no idea, but I'll say this. So to answer the second question, I don't know, but I don't have to know. Ryan Day has to know. And it's not like going out. It's not like going out and getting a defensive fucking lineman, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he goes out and he gets a quarterback, not only are you saying, McCord, you're not good enough, guess what? The other two guys in the room probably aren't good enough either. Now, Keinholz is just a true freshman.
Yeah.
But Brown's gone.
McCord's gone, more than likely. Yeah.
This is the $1 million question. And
Browns can go, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, totally. But
because that kid coming in 25 that's from St. Clair's, like, that kid is the real deal.
Well, fine. And Aaron Noland might be the real deal, but in the short term, this is actually really, really, fascinating. Could I live with Kyle next year? Absolutely. The question is Day going to live with him next year? Yeah. I don't know.
I said on Sunday that I was torn on McCord, but leaning, I guess, toward him as the guy moving forward. Now, McCord was 4 of 10 for 47 yards and the pick in the first quarter against Michigan, but then he went 14 of 20 for 224 yards and 2 touchdown passes before that game-ending interception. I don't think we can ignore that. I mean, that's 14 of 20 over a very long stretch of the game. He missed a couple throws here and there, but man, 14 of 20, 224 in the big house, 2 touchdown passes. Hang on a second, CP.
Yeah.
And then during that stretch, McCord made some big throws too. I mean, big-time throws. A 44-yarder to Harrison Jr., a 32-yarder down the seam to Cade Stover, a 28-yarder to Julian Fleming. Big-time throws and a huge game with the highest of stakes. However, over the last few days, a lot of the guys on the Ohio State beat whose opinions I listen to are starting to convince me that Ryan Day at least needs to reopen the competition this offseason and make McCord prove that he can eliminate the mistakes. I'm not totally against the idea of taking a kid out of the portal as long as he's a legit upgrade over McCord. Now, I'm not sure how likely it is. CP, you mentioned a Justin Fields. I think it would take that kind of a talent for Ohio State to make a commitment to someone out of the portal. And Paige, to your point, you would have to then live with the fallout. And I think the fallout would be considerable. I think you're talking about McCord and Brown walking out the door if you go into the portal and get a starter. So I think it's pretty unlikely. I'm torn. I don't know what the answer is like you, PBH. I don't have the answer. It would be very interesting to see what happens over these next 3 or 4 months. CP, let me kick this back to you. What are the thoughts you got on Kyle McCord?
This season, he's our number 4 quarterback in Ohio State passing yards in the season.
Number 4, 4th overall.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I have to look at the stats. That doesn't sound right to me, actually, because CJ Stroud, the last 2 years, had better passing seasons. Justin Fields had at least one that was better. And then you're getting into Dwayne Haskins, who broke a bunch of records in the 1 year he was a starter. And then you got Troy Smith and some of the others. But
I could have been a little aggressive, but there's something that he just became number 4 on.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, maybe you're right.
Interceptions against Michigan. Is that it? Is that the stat?
All right, guys. Look, before we move on, I'm going to kick this back to you, PBH. Any of your thoughts on the quarterback situation, Kyle McCord, that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, but it has to be a clear upgrade.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like all these guys that are like DJ Ugamala or whatever.
Uyunglele, yeah, he just entered the portal.
I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
You know,
he's going to go pro. That's what I think.
And I'm torn on McCord too. I just feel like the game. I don't know. Certain time, man. Because our receivers are so good and the schemes are so good and the routes are so good, but I keep seeing these clips where like if he just processes for 1.5 more seconds, right? Like then Marvin's, streaking down the middle of the bloody field and just throw it to him. And again, I don't go back and watch film. I'm not a quarterback guru, but where I do, put my head on the pillow very gingerly, Ryan Day is. And Ryan Day knows that. And Ryan Day is going to make the evaluation. I think this is the $1 million question. Did he make market improvement from the first game to the last game enough to say that he's my guy going forward? And if Day doesn't think so, then he's clearly got the stones, to go get the guy, right? Even if it's not Justin Fields.
Yeah, well, one thing's for sure. I think the rest of college football is playing the smallest violin in the world for the Buckeyes quarterback situation, right? I mean, you got McCord, who is still a very highly productive quarterback. He's going to finish second in the Big Ten in passing. Then you got Brown, another high 4-star. Then you got Aaron Nolan coming in. You got Lincoln Kienholz. Nobody's feeling sorry for us. The good news is for Ryan Day, he's got options if it turns out Kyle McCord isn't his guy. And CP, I think you mentioned this. He's still a young guy. I know he's a third-year player. A lot of people are like, well, he's a junior. He should be further along. He's still 21 fucking years old. He's still just a kid. And I am leaving room open for the real possibility, the probability even, that he can get better. But I wouldn't hate the idea of Day reopening the competition during the offseason and making McCord prove that he can eliminate those mistakes. All right, fellas, we need to spend a few minutes on Ryan Day. And I'm going to get us started, and then I'll kick it over to you guys. Ryan Day is now 1-3 against Michigan, and he's 1-6 against the top 5. Now, I want to be clear about something. Under no circumstances are 3 straight losses to Michigan acceptable. Period. Full stop. However, there's no way Ohio State's going to fire a coach that is 22-3 over the last 2 seasons, especially when his last 2 losses, number 1, Georgia in the Peach Bowl, number 3, Michigan in the Big House this past Saturday, especially when in those games, the margin between winning and losing those games was razor thin. CP, you referenced it. Joel Klatt said this yesterday. When the margin between winning and losing against those opponents, top 3 opponents, when it's that thin, you don't blow it up and start over. Now, it'd be a different story if Ohio State got run off the field by Michigan and Georgia in those games, but that's not what happened. Ohio State had the ball in the final minute of both games with a chance to win and just came up 1 play short. I think the answer here for Day is to have a good hard look at his coaching staff. We know special teams is one area where he can upgrade, and also his roster where he can make upgrades through the transfer portal. So that's where I am on Ryan Day. I said it on Sunday. He's your head coach for at least the next 2 seasons, unless he leaves of his own accord for another opportunity. PBH, I'm going to kick this to you. Where do you stand on Ryan Day?
So Ryan Day is your guy. There's no question about it. You're not going to make a move on him. And everything is going to change. And I sort of said this on the text I don't know, sometime this week, right? I think he is more slated to be like a playoff coach than he is just like the slogging Big Ten, like whatever, because he gets more creative, right?
Right.
And the Michigan game's kind of clearly in his head. The vitriol and the hatred with Harbaugh is great. I love it, but you got to kind of tip your hat to Harbaugh on it, right? Like he pulled it off, but going forward, like I think Day will really be phenomenal in this new format moving forward. I think it's in his wheelhouse. And the other thing is, who are you going to go get that's better? That's the other thing, right? Like, so that whole narrative is stupid. It's not excusing, the last whatever. I mean, I almost give him like 1 or 2 years mulligans, but dude, that the whole fire Ryan Day thing is so stupid. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. It's kind of a waste of time. Urban Meyer was 7-0 against Michigan. He won a national title in 2014, as we know. But you know what else Meyer did that has never happened under Ryan Day in 5 seasons? He lost 55-24 to an unranked Iowa team. He lost 49-20 to an unranked Purdue team. And both of those losses fucking ruined Ohio State's playoff chances in 2017 and 2018 before he even had the chance to take the field against Michigan. And we remember how successful Jim Tressel was against Michigan, 9-1. But people forget, Tressel lost 5 games his first season in Columbus in 2001 with actually a pretty good roster that he inherited from John Cooper. He lost 4 games in 2004. Tressel lost 4 times in his career to Wisconsin. He lost twice to Purdue. Tressel's the only Ohio State coach in the last 52 years to lose to fucking Northwestern. As you well know, PBH, you watched that with your with your father-in-law, the Northwestern fan.
Downtown Evanston.
And Tressel lost at home as the number 1 team in the country to an unranked Illinois team in 2007. Ryan Day doesn't have any stains like any of that on his record so far. And to me, that means something. You do have to get to the Michigan game unscathed in order for that game to mean what you want it to mean. And I understand beating Penn State and Notre Dame, it's not the same thing as beating Michigan. I get it, but it's not nothing either. I mean, you can count on one hand the number of programs where beating those teams would be taken for granted. I just think some people are also being too dismissive of Ryan Day's entire body of work. It's all about beating Michigan.
That is so funny about Tressel because I completely didn't know that or remember that, right? We're blinded by the fact that he was 9-1 against Michigan and the national championship, and everything else just falls by the wayside. That's just not like you if you'd have told me that and you said, I'll bet you $1 million this is true, I would have said, no fucking way.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that, like nobody else, you don't hear anybody, it's like, any of the Ohio State people, the guys you follow, the guys you listen to, see, none of them bring any of that up.
Right.
It's just all like, and I agree with you. I think that's huge. Yeah. Do I want to beat Michigan? Fuck yeah. I mean, like it's it is what it is. But I'm glad you brought that up. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I think Ryan might need to. I don't know. I think maybe like a co-offensive coordinator, perhaps. I don't know where I land on that. Like I go back and forth. I mean, I think maybe a little bit of like take a little bit of responsibility off his shoulders. You know,
for sure.
I mean? Like maybe he
I'm with you.
Involved into the whole game. You know what I mean? So I think that may be something that needs to be, really, thought of, like addressed pretty closly. But, overall, I mean, like you said, like, how can you, who are you going to get? I mean, who's out there that's got Ohio ties? Hartline's too young right now.
Yeah.
What's his face down like Tennessee? Like, I can't even think of his
Vrabel.
name right now. Like, he's a great coach. Yeah, Vrabel. I mean, that could be a viable option. I mean, like what he did with Tennessee. I mean, you've got
he's employed, man. He's got an NFL head coaching job. I mean, I think to the question, who else are you going to get? I'm sure there are other coaches that could do very well and meet or exceed what Ryan Day is doing. However, who can you get that's available? And do you want to risk, making a coaching change is a risky proposition. It doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
And you're right on look, Ryan Day's knocking on the goddamn door, I think. Right? I mean, he's right there.
God,
he's winning all of his other games, and he's a hair away in these last 2 games against Michigan in the Big House this year and Georgia last year. He's right there.
Last year from going to the national championship.
Yeah.
We would have kicked the fuck out of ECU.
Yeah. I mean, so he's right on the doorstep. You don't blow it up when you're right on the doorstep.
Agree, man.
Yeah.
Nope.
And to that point, I would say sort of high level, right? I don't know if I occasionally get haters and stuff like that, on that game, but fuck, man, I would much rather be in that game and lose it than not have a program that's in the goddamn game.
Totally agree.
Right.
Totally agree.
So don't ever lose sight of the fact, right, of how fucking awesome it is that we get to grind on this. And, it doesn't always work out in our favor, but a lot of times it does. We have 2 national championships in the last 20 years. I didn't think we'd ever get one, right? But God damn it, it's pretty freaking awesome. And Days, he's doing a great job. Are there criticisms? 100%. But don't ever lose sight of the fact of how awesome it is that they are in it to win it every single year. And there's only about 2 or 3 other programs that can say that. That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Paige, I want to go back to something you said, because I don't think anybody's thinking about this right now, because Ohio State fans are still, wallowing in their misery over losing to Michigan. But the world changes in 2024, guys. The Michigan game isn't going to be the same obstacle to a national championship that it's been for the last 100 years. And I know there are some Ohio State fan police out there that'll tell me I'm a loser for looking at it this way. They can all go piss up a fucking poll. The reality is, starting in 2024, Ohio State teams that are as good as this one are going to get 2 cracks at beating Michigan in most seasons. Once during the regular season, and then again in the Big Ten title game. And in most seasons, Ohio State, Michigan will no longer be an elimination game for the CFP. Win or lose, both teams are going to qualify in most seasons. And you know what? That's the way it fucking should be. The postseason and how this sport determines its champion has been college football's biggest flaw for its entire existence. It's been the biggest, most frustrating flaw in all of sports, college or pro. Greedy bowl executives stood in the way of progress for decades, and now they're finally out of the way, and we can have a postseason in college football that makes fucking sense and that more fans can have a real stake in and enjoy. So the world changes next year. People just can't think about it because it hasn't happened yet. Ask Alabama fans in 2017 when they lost to Auburn, but still got in anyway and won the whole fucking thing. Ask them would they give a shit about losing to Auburn that year. I'm telling you, it just hasn't happened yet, but one time it is going to happen. Ohio State will lose to Michigan, and they'll still go on to win a national champion. And who's going to give a fuck that we lost that game? The ultimate goal is to win a national championship. Sorry, go ahead, CP.
Fuck you want to say you're a loser for saying that, but it's fucking, especially that you made that entire comment was not taking a breath. That whole that was fantastic.
Oh my God. And to your point, PVH, who knows what the future holds for Michigan?
Right.
They lose 43 seniors. There are major NCAA sanctions coming for them after this sign stealing scandal. And if you think Jim Harbaugh is going to stick around and endure those penalties and not take the first flight out of town back to the NFL, I got some swampland in Florida I want to sell you. Right?
Yeah, sell it to Tebow. No, dude, you're totally right. And it's the one frustrating thing, right? We're going back to leaders and legends. Like, dude, how you ever let that happen is just, it's absolutely astonishing because you know, and especially this year, right? Like I actually kind of think, and we're going to get to this in a second, maybe this is a good segue. Like, you know, if things don't go our way on Saturday, and we're going to talk about that, it pains me to say this. Like, I think Michigan has a really good crack through the whole thing because Ohio State's as good as anybody out there, right? I'll take them against any of those teams. I've not been impressed by anybody. Mm-hmm. And they both could potentially be in there, but the way the Big Ten set this up with, you know, the East and the West,
it's a joke.
It's a joke. It's terrible.
Since they went to East and West from leaders and legends in 2014, the Big Ten West is 0-9, soon to be 0-10 in the Big Ten title game.
Yeah, like how could you? Oh God!
20 years from now, I said this on Sunday's pod. We're going to look back at the era of divisions in the Big Ten, and we're going to look, what the fuck were they thinking? Mm-hmm. What were you doing? Yeah. All right, fellas, listen. Well, let's move on to this. The chances are slim, but Ohio State still does have a path to the college football
I'm
playoff.
gonna wrap up soon, right?
This involves number 7 Texas losing to number 18 Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game, number 8 Alabama losing to number 1 Georgia in the SEC title game, and number 4 Florida State losing to number 14 Louisville in the ACC title game. Now, some also think that number 3 Washington needs to beat number 5 Oregon in the Pac-12 title game, which would give the Ducks a second loss in order to get the Buckeyes in, but I disagree with that. I think Ohio State will jump the loser of the Big 12, of the Pac-12 championship game. Do you guys want to spend a few minutes talking about these games?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, great. So let's go sequentially. Let's start Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. This is number 5 Oregon against number 3 Washington in the Pac-12 title game. This is being played in Las Vegas. Oregon is now a 10-point favorite in this game. The over/under is 65.5. Who do we like in this game? PBH, give us a pick.
I like Oregon, but I'm going to go against it. I'm going to take Washington with the points.
Well, okay.
But
do you like Washington to win, or are you just taking Washington to cover?
I'm going to take Washington to win.
Wow. Okay. How about you, CP?
I'm going to go with Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, they just like Bo Nix is having like he's just reintroduced himself as like Auburn like those days. Like I got to go with Oregon just because of Bo Nix.
Yeah, I understand Washington beat Oregon earlier in the season, but Oregon's been playing way better than Washington recently. I like Oregon. I like Oregon in a blowout. I think Oregon wins big, and I think they bury Washington's playoff hopes with a blowout in this game. Okay. Noon Eastern on Saturday. This is the big one here for us. This is the big domino, the first big domino we need to fall. This is the Big 12 title game, noon Eastern on ABC. This is being played in Jerry's World AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Number 7 Texas against number 18 Oklahoma State. The line is Texas minus 15.5. The over/under is 54.5. PBH, who do you like in this game?
This is the PVH will start doing 3 Jack Daniel shots as soon as Quinn Ewers blows this for us, and then the dominoes start to fall. Right, this is the only thing I care about. I'm not like you. I mean, I'm still, my heart is still broken, so I'm not going to watch a whole lot of college football. But if Oklahoma State pulls this off, and by the way, and you reference this, like the Big 12 championship game is always quirky.
Yeah,
right.
Wacky.
And the irony of ironies is that you got the mullet at Texas, right? That could break our heart. But if he doesn't, and Texas blows this game, then the drinks will start flowing. And so I'm going with Oklahoma State to win straight up.
All right,
That's just my heart. I wouldn't necessarily put my money on it, but I just might.
Yeah, come on, Quinn. Do us a solid, baby. We helped you get that goddamn kombucha deal your freshman year. Come on, do us a solid. Blow this one. Throw 4 picks in this game. Let's go Oklahoma State. How about you, CP? Who do you like in this game?
Well, Gundy is 9-3 against Texas, so it's that's a huge stat right there, man.
Yeah.
Obviously, Texas has been pretty much in the dump for quite some time, but I mean, I got Oklahoma State covering the game. I mean,
who wins it?
Obviously, I wanted. They're going to cover that easy. But I want to say, obviously, Texas, I think, is going to win. Obviously, for us, obviously, I want to say Oklahoma State's going to win outright. But it is what it is. I mean, we'll see. But it's crazy that you brought that up, Paige. Like Quinn, the mullet is like, we're all backing on him for the dominoes to fall.
He might as well be the quarterback for us.
That was
year.
my boy.
No, you love him.
Yeah. Texas got a pretty nasty defense, but they're Texas. Yeah. They're Texas. My heart says Oklahoma State. My head says Texas. Fuck it. I'm taking Oklahoma State. And it's the start of a very interesting Saturday for Ohio State fans. Okay. Next up, 4 p.m. Eastern on CBS. It's the SEC title game. Number 1, Georgia against number 8, Alabama. The line is UGA minus 5.5. The over-under is 54.5. Now, I just saw something on Twitter that Ladd McConkey and their stud tight end, whose name escapes me right now, might not play in this game for Georgia. PBH, who do you like?
I like Georgia. I mean, come on, you're not going to throw another 40-yard bomb. Back the Brinks truck up on this. I know it's Georgia big.
Georgia big.
20-25.
Wow. Okay. How about UCP?
I don't know, man. Bama's been playing you know how much I just don't like Nick Saban. I mean, like outside of football, he seems like he's a cool dude. I'd I'd party with him. But they're playing good ball, man. I think this is a coin toss, to be honest with you. There's games that Georgia should Georgia Tech was like in that game to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Alabama should have lost to Auburn. That was a fluke. I mean, who knows? I mean, if I'm going to bet on it, I would take Georgia. Okay.
Look at Brock Bowers can't play in this game, and Ladd McConkey. I think those are pretty big equalizers in this game.
Yeah, he's been out for the last. For the last 6 games, has he?
No, Bowers came back a couple of weeks ago, but now it sounds like he's got another injury of some kind, and it sounds like McConkey might not play either.
Shut it down.
Yeah. We'll see. I like Georgia in this game as well. The game is played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. I like Georgia. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be close, but I think Georgia wins it. And then the other result we'll be watching, the game we'll be watching very closely, ACC title game. That'll be played at the exact same time as the Big Ten title game. It's number 4 Florida State against number 14 Louisville. This game's being played in Charlotte, North Carolina, Bank of America Stadium. The line is only FSU -1.5. The over-under is 47.5. And we know Jordan Travis, the star quarterback for Florida State, will not be playing in this game. Florida State does not look like the same team, not even remotely, or the same offense, I should say, without Travis. Who do you like in this game, PBH?
I haven't seen Florida State play a single play. I haven't seen Louisville play a single play. All I know who my rooting interest is, so go Cardinal.
All right. How about UCP?
I got Louisville in this game, man. They're playing some good football.
Okay. Yeah, this will be very interesting. I'm going to take Louisville as well. I mean, it's basically a pick 'em on a neutral field, and Florida State is without their star quarterback. I could also see a world where Florida State just kind of leans on Louisville and wins it with their defense and running game and just squeaks it out. And actually, that is a worst case scenario for the playoff committee, because now you got an undefeated Florida State as a conference champion that I don't think anybody believes has any chance of winning a playoff semifinal without Jordan Travis. But you got to put them in, right? Because they're undefeated.
Yeah, you have to.
They're a conference champion. I think the college football playoff committee is probably rooting for Louisville in this game because they don't want to have to make that call. But I'll take Louisville. What the fuck? And we'll see. Look, guys, it's the last weekend of meaningful college football games until the playoffs. I got to watch it. And then, God, in a few weeks, there'll be no football, and we're going to be waiting 8 months for college football.
All right. I got a question, and we don't have to talk about Michigan, Iowa, because no one wants to talk about Michigan, Iowa. It's just an abomination of a Big Ten title game. We all know who's going to win that game. What if Texas wins exceptionally ugly and Bama loses to Georgia? Let's just say Oregon beats Washington. Do you see a scenario where we sneak in, or no? Texas has to lose, because that's the one that I'm kind of like, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think Texas. I mean, Texas would be a conference champion. They'd have one loss, but they'd have one more win. We know Michigan's in that scenario. Georgia's in that scenario. The Pac-12 champion is in that scenario, and then it comes down to a comparison between a conference champion.
We're ranked ahead. I don't
see
not saying it's possible. I'm just so you discount it. Whole 100%?
Yeah, no way.
No shot.
No way. They're a conference champion with one more win. They've got a road win at Alabama. I don't think so.
I tend to agree. I was just hoping that you'd make me feel better.
All right, fellas. Why don't we end things there? For our listeners, if the dominoes happen to fall Ohio State's way on Saturday and the Buckeyes end up in the playoff, look for a pod from me on Sunday. If not, then look for a pod or two from the three of us in the weeks leading up to the bowl game. Until then, thanks so much for listening, and go Bucks. You've been listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our website at southstandsosu.com.